Good afternoon and greetings, everyone. I'm Marvin Krislov, the president of Pace University, and I am very excited for the start of the new year. Welcome all students, and especially the class of 2024. We're excited to be back in whatever format. Our plans are flexible, our classes will meet both in person and remote, and we are prepared to adjust as the situation changes. Everything we are doing aligns with state guidance and the CDC recommendations. Our plans have been developed in consultation with other colleges and universities in New York. Remember that New York City and Westchester are both in phase 4 of Governor Cuomo's reopening plan. So far, it's looking like our region has successfully beaten back the virus. We've successfully made it through 3 previous phases, and the state has evaluated things at each stage and allowed the plan to continue. Some adjustments have been made to keep us safe, including, for instance, no indoor dining right now in New York City. But things are progressing well here, and we're all remaining vigilant. We will make sure to keep you updated in real time. We at Pace are moving forward and remaining vigilant. We are here today to answer all your questions: how instruction will work, how residential life will work, what new safety measures we've put in place, and how we will monitor the health and safety of everyone. In a moment, we'll get to our full panel of campus experts. But first, I want to say thank you again for being part of the Pace family, for entrusting us with your education or with your students. We're determined to help all our students stay on track to achieve their educational goals, and we are committed to everyone's health and safety. I first now want to introduce our provost, Vania Quinones, who has been leading our efforts to rethink our programs and policies for this new normal. Vania?
Thank you, Marvin, and thank you all for being here. I hope that you're as excited as I am for our fall 2020 semester. We're ready, and we're getting ready in so many different ways. As Marvin said, we are committed to continue your education, and we're also committed of everybody's health and safety. How we will do it? There is different academic options. As Marvin said, we have in-person, online, high flex, which is a combination of in-person and online. If you want to be all online, you will have all online courses. And if you want to have some in-campus experience, we're providing that too. We have also a lot of campus safety measurements, including distance, mask all the time, screening, etc. We will talk about that today. We also have new policies for testing and other policies that will be discussed today. All of these policies and actions is to ensure that we have a community that is safe and a community that is healthy. We have today a lot of experts from our group that will talk about these issues that are essential for coming back on fall 2020. I'm going to turn everything to both our deans of students, Mary Jo Russell O'Grady and Rachel Carpenters, who will be introducing our panel and will guide the discussion today. But once again, I want to thank you all. I want to thank the parents that are here today, the new students, the continuing students, grad students. We are all very excited to see you. T-Bone and me are here, and Marvin and the whole community, to ensure that you will have a safety return. Thank you, Mary Jo.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to meet everybody from our new Pace family. Pace in my place is like one of the most special places on earth. We put students first in everything we do. And this university still continues to offer excellent academic reputation, small class sizes. You have real scholars in your field who are going to get you jobs upon graduation. And you know what? We have this incredible, strong ethic of care. So we want the students to have the best experience, and we'll challenge and support you to get you through that. So now I have the opportunity to introduce you to an amazing group of colleagues with a wealth of information and know all the opportunities that we have for engagement and safety and bringing you back in the ways in which you want to come back and engage. So first I want to introduce my dear, dear colleague, Rachel Carpenter, the Interim Associate Vice President and Dean for Students on our Westchester campus. Rachel, tell us about what you do.
Thanks, Mary Jo. So I am on the Pleasantville campus, and the past few months, specifically, I've been working with our teams in residential life and housing regarding move-in procedures, quarantine and isolation protocols in the residence halls, and also our semester operations and policy development. I can also speak on the work that we've done with student development and campus activities teams on the guidelines for hosting events per New York State guidelines and how to best support our student organizations, and most importantly, the involvement and engagement of our students on campus.
Thank you so much. Dr. Hillary Nepper, the Associate Provost for Student Success.
Thanks, Mary Jo. Thanks, Rachel. I'm really excited. I am the interim provost, as you heard, or associate provost for student success. And as such, I'm sort of that connector between student operations and academics. In addition to all the folks that you see here tonight, there is a whole cadre of professionals working behind the scenes. And while we're all working hard to make sure that we're delivering this safe experience, we also want to make sure you know that we're working very hard on making sure this is an enriching academic and student life experience. And one of the things that I want to make sure everyone's aware of is that whether or not you are right here on campus taking all of your classes face-to-face with us in the residences and hanging out at all the activities, or whether or not you're working remotely from another part of the country or in a different country altogether, we are here. We have our learning centers all set up to accommodate you. Our libraries are ready to go. Our academic advisors are prepared. Every operation that we have here is ready to serve our students and make sure it's the best experience it can be. Thank you.
Absolutely. And next we have Brian Anderson, the Director of Emergency Management.
All right, thanks, Mary Jo. Thanks, Rachel, and welcome everybody. It's great to be here. I'm helping to lead efforts of the COVID-19 task force along with hundreds of people here at the university, which is great. We're focusing on establishing plans for reopening the university in accordance with the New York State Department of Health guidance. Some of our recent activity has been the development of a daily health screening tool, which we'll talk about in a bit, as long as putting together a training that's going to be for students, staff, and faculty to complete before the start of the semester. So we're getting ready and excited to see you soon. Thank you.
Nicole Thompson, VP for Administrative Operations.
Welcome, everyone. So as the VP of Administrative Operations, I've been working closely with the task force and the subcommittees on safety plans and returning our business operations and staff to campus in the fall. And so I've also been working with facilities and residential life on plans for front-facing student operations, such as dining, our campus bookstores, and our ID card offices. Thank you.
Thank you. Ibiolas, VP for Facilities.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the VP of Facilities and Capital Project. My team and I, we're going to be responsible for preparing the physical environment, the buildings and their infrastructure to adhere to all the federal, state, and local guidelines. We are installing the distancing signage on campus, reviewing the circulation patterns, how we move through our buildings, reviewing the occupancy levels that's going to be allowed in our campus, doing the cleaning, disinfecting, ensuring we have adequate supplies, and installing some of the protective screens and service locations and in classrooms. And we could talk a little bit more about that as session goes on. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Rachel?
Okay, thank you. So, so we're now going to get to the questions, because we know that that's really important to why over 1,000 of you have logged on today. We've received dozens upon dozens of questions in advance, and we are going to try our best to work through that list with the time that we have. I will ask the questions of the appropriate panelists as they've introduced themselves, and we'll also keep an eye on the chat box for some new questions or to see what's on people's minds and if we can address with additional questions. We are not going to realistically be able to get through everything, so I apologize ahead of time, but I can offer you that we have our Return to Campus website, pace.edu/return, where you can actually see much of this material. We are going to go through the chat transcript after the session today and see if there are any additional questions that we need to answer and to provide on that web page. So without further ado, let's get started. So I have been kind of monitoring a couple of the questions in the chat, but some of them have to do with safety. And so I'd love to turn it over to Jerry to get us started about, with the information that we know now, is it safe to return to college campuses and particularly PACE?
Sure, Rachel, thank you. So is it safe to return to campus? In a word, yes, it is safe to return to campus. And I say that not only as the Associate Dean for Administration in the College of Health Professions, but I also say that as a nurse for nearly 50 years. I personally would not go anywhere where I did not feel safe. And I can tell you that I have been back to campus and it is safe, it is ready, and it is going to be a wonderful learning and working environment. The Return for Campus plan, which many of my colleagues on this call have been working on, we have taken into account the best guidelines and policies from federal, state, and local health officials, as well as the CDC and the American College Health Association. Literally hundreds of members of the PACE community, including students, faculty, and staff, have been involved in developing our plans. We also worked with colleges and universities across the state and with subject matter experts to build the very best plan for the safety of our community. PACE is safe and responsible. We also know that New York State has successfully driven down infection rates. As of today, it was just about 1%. At its peak for New York, we were at 8%. So we've come down quite a bit. We have moved through the reopening phases very successfully, and we are doing so slowly and gradually. But should there be an outbreak on campus and we need to go back to remote learning, we are ready to do so. In fact, we were required to do so by New York State, and we had to file a plan on how we would make that change if necessary. So is it safe to go to campus? Yes, it is safe, and we look forward to welcoming you all back. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. Hillary, this next question is for you. There's been a few questions in the chat about classes, online, remote, in person. So could you take a few moments and talk to us about how classes are going to work this fall?
Sure, and I'll also share how I'm going to do it. So what we've done is we've spent this past spring and summer really prepping, having our faculty go through new training, and everyone's having to get this online certification in terms of how to teach online or in web assisted. And we've divided our modalities for instruction into 4 main categories. And one is fully face-to-face, in person. Every bit of it's going to take place in class with the exception of homework. The next one is fully online, which is the opposite of that. So everything is fully online. And then we're going to have web assisted, which is what I'll be doing the coming semester as well. And that's where it's some combination of face-to-face and online. And in my case, because I teach a 3-hour graduate course, I want to reduce our face-to-face classroom activities. So we'll be meeting every week on campus for our class, but then we'll also have some other activities during the week that take place online. And that can be interactive synchronously, it can be asynchronously, but as a faculty member teaching a graduate class, I'll work on that with my students. So that's that web assisted. And then we have the high flex, or this sort of this hybrid type of learning where it's simultaneous, it is live for some students and others are taking it synchronously at the same time, but from a remote environment. So for somebody, say, who maybe is an international student who couldn't get back, they can sign on same time as the face-to-face students in class. And so that's a really cool new technology that we're using, that we've invested in for this coming semester. The other piece to that is have your students and yourselves, all of you, because I know we've got students on this call, we are going live with our updated schedule that includes all the modalities. Hopefully, I think by the latest July 27th. So just keep an eye out on that. And what that means is you'll get instructions, log in, check out the modalities. Your advisors are going to be fully prepared. They will be reaching out to you. You can also reach out to them. You don't have to wait. And what that's going to look like is you're going to check out your schedule. If everything looks exactly the way you had anticipated it, you're good to go. If you have a question about a modality, we can help you. If you want to switch to a different modality because the one you're currently enrolled in has one that you're not as comfortable with, we'll also work with you on that. And we'll have until August 24th, which is the first day of classes, to make those changes. And then of course the usual add drop period will remain the same. You'll still have, you get in, you check it out. My husband changed his entire degree because he was in the wrong class one time, and that changed his degree. So we always will have the add drop period. That does not change this. So be on the lookout for our communications coming out. We'll let you know what those modalities are, and your faculty will also be available in terms of if I'm doing, say, a web assisted, what is it going to look like? So you'll get a fuller and deeper understanding at that point in time. Thanks.
Hillary, you thought you were done, but
I'm
I have
not
a follow-up
done.
question. So there's, I keep saying this because it's true. There's questions in the chat here about various students wanting to know, can they do all of their classes remotely? If they find their schedule and they see that they have an in-person, can they then switch that to remote? What are kind of their options of doing all of their classes remotely?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I want everybody to think about is, to the greatest extent possible, the answer is yes. There are going to be some limitations with some clinical classes that can't be delivered in a remote environment. So we'll have some that just don't quite work for that, and they know about it. So if you're a student in a program where they don't have the possibility of working it out for a particular class in that way, then you will know for sure, and we'll make arrangements to work with you on these other opportunities. But for the vast majority of our students, as faculty, we are prepared to deliver that. If you're able to come to class, or if you're not able to come to class and I've got a face-to-face, like mine is a face-to-face class, I'm anticipating a couple of my international students will not be able to join me face-to-face. And as all of the faculty have been prepared for that, which is why it was so important for faculty and adjuncts to have this updated pedagogical training so that we were prepared to accommodate folks remotely so that it's still just as enriching. And I think that we are well prepared for that eventuality, because we are fully aware that not everybody can return to campus. So the answer is mostly yes.
And we know that there are some students and maybe family members from like the performing arts program, and then also some courses that require labs. So how will performance and lab classes be conducted?
Well, with our labs, most of them we are anticipating being face-to-face, but for many, many of our science labs, there are opportunities to do these virtual labs. There are plenty of different simulations, and we did some of these over the spring semester, and we pivoted. And with performing arts, we're still working with the performing arts on how we're going to deliver some of that face-to-face instruction. And I'm not sure if anybody else wants to jump in, but it is my understanding that we really are it's going to be a smaller number of those face-to-face classes in the fall, but we are figuring out what that balance is. Is it more of a didactic experience in the fall, and is it more performance-based in the spring and summer? So those are some of the things that we're working out. And as you're looking at the modality, when they go live, then we'll have a better understanding of that, and individual professors will be working with you. And Vanya, you may have something in addition to that.
Yeah, I just want to advise everybody, as you say before, July 27 is the day that you will know what are the courses you're assigned to and what modality they are. And if you have any questions, use the advisors and the counseling of each department. We're still working with some of the courses that we're offering, and we're working on the modalities, so this is changing, but by the 27th everything will be live and you will see the courses that you're taking. And as Hillary say, there will be the flexibility for you to choose the type of courses that suit not 100%, but there will be the flexibility for choosing the type of courses that suit your need right now. So more to come. Hillary's right, the 27th is the day that we will let you know exactly what modality and what are the courses that have completely online, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Oh, Hillary, I'm coming back to you. But it is switching away from the academic perspective, and there are clearly family members and students who are on the chat that are from the tri-state area, but are also from some travel advisory states. So we're getting quite a few questions about what is the testing and quarantine policy for the arrival of students. And I know I have you listed here as maybe taking that question, and if we need backup, we'll call Jerry, who's got the best bedside manner.
That sounds good. Jerry, you can back me up on this. So yes, all students returning to Pace University with a physical presence are going to be required to come to Pace with a negative COVID-19 test. So what that means for students who are, say, from my home state of Florida, that you need to sort of think about what that is going to look like, because we need a test that's within that 2-week period prior to you returning to campus. So we're hoping that people will take all of that into account when they're recognizing, okay, I'm in a state where there might be a delay in testing. And so think about aligning those opportunities for you when you return. So whether or not you are a residential student or a commuter student, or you're in, any of our students in any area, you're all going to be required to have a negative test before you're allowed physically on campus. That said, we have folks coming from states that may be under quarantine now and not later, or we may have folks who are coming from states that are currently not on a mandatory quarantine list from the state of New York. So if you happen to be coming from a state that is quarantined at the time you are arriving, then yes, we are making these quarantine arrangements for you. It'll be a 2-week quarantine period, and we're going to start moving folks in sometime around August 10th. There's a communication that will be going out to you about that. It explains it in detail. We are going to quarantine our residential students who come from outside of the tri-state area in hotels that are right by campus, and we are going to have our residential life folks spending the night on campuses, in the hotels as well. So we'll have a PACE presence there. We are going to have folks working very closely with our students who are under quarantine, from Res Life folks to our student life folks, and we've got a lot of detail we'll be sharing with everybody. I don't want to go into too much detail with that. Once on campus, our students who are residential students, we will be having everyone take another test within that first week. After that first week, 5 to 7 days, we want to make sure everybody gets one more test. And then we'll be testing again once everybody has been in school for about a week. We're going to follow through with some more testing. For our students who are in the tri-state area, we are also going to ask that folks attest to whether or not they went to Disney World for vacation 2 weeks prior to coming to campus. And if you did, then we're going to add you to the quarantine list, but you can quarantine at home if you prefer, because you'll be home. So if you're a commuter student and you have an apartment, you'll go ahead and quarantine there. We have monitoring set up. We have some nice things set up to try to keep folks from getting stir crazy, and we will have a strong support system for our folks who are in quarantine as we're moving through some of that. Jerry, did I answer everything, or is there anything that anyone wanted to add to that?
No, I think you covered the important parts, Hillary. I would just add that if anybody is being quarantined or they're home being quarantined and they don't feel well, University Healthcare has nurse practitioners that are available for telehealth visits. And so even though students are being quarantined and won't be leaving their rooms or their homes, healthcare services are available through University Healthcare. And that's been true for the past 5 months. So that will continue.
Thank you very much.
To follow up on that also, with telehealth, we can use counseling services and
Absolutely.
the quarantine for individuals impacted by the New York State Travel Advisory.
Exactly.
Of course, we'd include meals and internet because
all that's taken care of. And for those folks, our residential students arriving from out among those states that are under New York State quarantine, PACE is taking care of that expense.
So, and there's been some questions about if I'm a commuter student, but let's say I live in another state and I have an apartment off campus, our expectation would be that you then would quarantine in your apartment. So if you have other accommodations, and also if you are a family member, if you are bringing your whole family with you, to move in your students, there's been some questions about, do you then have to quarantine as well? Currently, according to the guidance from New York State, not Pace University, is that if you are coming into New York State from these areas, you are expected to quarantine. It would probably be a little uncomfortable if you were to maybe quarantine in a single room with your student. And in fact, we would prefer that you don't do that. If there's been actually some suggestions in the chat from family members who have said that they would like to maybe quarantine in a different accommodation, that's something that we would be able to discuss with families as we're shown case by case.
I just want to jump in a second and remind everybody that everything is moving, everything is changing. We're going to follow CDC and New York State guidelines. And as of today, we have a 14-day quarantine requirement for out of state in certain groups. We will send communications to everybody, but the situation changes. So we will follow what New York State, you know, there's going to be, as today, there's going to be 14 days quarantine, and Pace is going to take care of the hotels for the out of states on the areas that are of high risk. But just please, you know, if you have any questions, you know, contact advisors or contact everybody here to clarify any questions if you have any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, it's been a moving target for everybody, and I'm sure that whether you live in the Bronx or you live in California, having an idea of your travel plans and availability is really important, and it has been a moving target for us. We recognize that, and we are trying our best to hit the target as close as we can. The next question is for Mary Jo. Mary Jo, how are we going to make sure that people on campus are maintaining physical distance and wearing appropriate face coverings? Particularly, there's people from states who wear them all the time, and then there are states that haven't quite mandated it, but what are we going to do to make sure that
it's really our hope and expectation that they will wear their mask? And it's really about education and awareness. We really need them to comply with this. And we will be doing education, reaching out to them, making sure that folks do it, reminding folks, you know, to do this in ways in which and are, you know, sensitive, but also ensure students first. It's all about our community. So we will, you know, try to elicit so everyone is responsible for everyone. And I think we can do this, you know. My students are really lovely people. They're lovely individuals. You know, they want to help people. They're like good souls. They have a good ethic of care. So they're true to themselves, a core value. So I think they will comply. And they also listen to me because I'm like their mom away from home. And, you know, I kind of get on them and say like, hey, come on, let's do this. And so I think we'll be okay.
So and I'll add on to that, since
Please.
Mary Jo and I have you know, similar positions on different campuses, and you know, we are going to follow New York State guidelines, which does require face coverings in public, and especially when physical distancing is not possible. You think about hallways, inside buildings, classrooms, our student centers, event spaces. And we really understand, as Mary Jo said, that there'll be a learning curve in the beginning. But eventually, if a student or anybody really fails to comply with these measures, has multiple documented cases of actively not complying, we will have to start treating these as student conduct concerns, because the behavior can be considered a threat to public health, and we will take the refusals to comply pretty seriously. But I want to bring a little silver lining to this. We had our student newspaper conduct a poll, and it showed actually that a majority of our respondents, who are a mix from New York City and Pleasantville, who responded, they believe that face coverings and physical distancing are important. In fact, the top 3 measures that they felt were most important, number 1 was face covering, number 2 was physical distancing, and number 3 was testing. And so those came from our students. So I want to give an element of hope that our students are going to comply, but we also are prepared when students don't, that we will take additional steps.
And Rachel, that's something that Evie might talk about later, is the fact that we are using signage, and we are using floor markings, and we are using campaigning to ensure that students actually understand what that distancing looks like, and to help them to figure out and to comply with it when they're in a particular area. So I think that will be helpful as well, because there's guidance everywhere in every building.
Stairwells, elevators, you know,
perfect segue, Nicole, because actually one of the follow-up questions is asking about, Evie, this is for you, is asking about the specific changes that have been made to in-classroom setups and bathrooms, and then to make sure that there's airflow, circulation, and physical distancing. Perhaps you could share with us.
So we have reviewed all of our classroom, and all of the classrooms will be altered to create a 6 feet social distancing guidelines. There will be a physical plexiglass or glass screen between the instructor and the students in the class to protect both the students and the faculty. The signage, as Nicole mentioned, they will be posted and installed. It's almost completed, the installation. All of our buildings highlighting the circulation pattern, which way to go in the corridors. Staircases will be assigned whether to go up or down. The elevator capacity will be greatly reduced. So we encourage those who can to take the staircase and leave the elevators to those who are not able to take the staircase. Within the elevators, we also will indicate where to stand and which way to face. We will have the air filters changes with UV light. We're increasing fresh air intakes in all of our spaces. We're not only accommodating the CDC guidelines, we're going even a step further by including additional circulation measures and filters to remove the particles from the ductwork. And there will be additional barriers and screens involved with all the student-facing areas. Bathrooms, we also looked at the capacity. There will be some that will not be able to use, maybe every other one because of the distancing guidelines. There will be also a UV light in all the public restrooms as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you did talk about elevators, which came up. Evie, can you talk a little bit more about the cleaning and sanitation on campus as far as frequency or the areas that'll get more of the attention?
Okay. So all classrooms, conference room, dining halls, libraries, all the public spaces have been disinfected. We are in the process of cleaning and disinfecting all the residence halls prior to students to move in. We actually added a whole disinfecting teams, additional staff to our campus cleaners, and they will be identified with a different uniform. The frequency were increased and increased evening cleaning. Electrostatic cleaning, which proved to be appropriate for the COVID-19 pandemic, been instituted. The frequency was, as I mentioned, introduced not only in the classroom, but all the other spaces. The classroom will be also disinfected after each and every day. There will be hand sanitizers all around campus and also disinfecting wipes at the classroom and the public spaces.
Thank you, Evie. There's a lot of work that goes into maintaining 3 campuses and changing all of our protocols, so thank you. This next one is for Brian, with backup from Jerry. If there is a person who tests positive for COVID-19, perhaps it could be a faculty member or a student, even a residential student, how will we be notified, and what does that mean for our students and even their family members?
Sure. So the actual response will be coordinated by a new position that we're creating. It's going to be the Coronavirus Coordination Officer or COVID Coordinator. And with any sort of exposure or positive test, that individual has to be required to isolate for 14 days So if it were a faculty member, their course would likely transition to remote for that period, or they may have to rely on a peer instructor to cover the course. Any sort of close contact, that's an individual that had a prolonged period of time with the individual, less than 6 feet for 15 minutes, they would be classified as a close contact by the Department of Health. So Department of Health contact tracers would work with individuals from PACE who have taken the Johns Hopkins contact tracing training, sorry, that's a mouthful, to develop a plan for identifying those individuals according to New York State guidelines. Those close contacts would be required to quarantine for 14 days following an exposure. So if a residential student or faculty member, they would wind up quarantining at home. If they were a residential student, they'd be able to use some of our quarantine or isolation rooms that we do have set aside for that purpose.
And Brian, as a follow-up question, and I apologize if we don't have a specific percentage that we can give, but there was a couple questions about under what circumstances might we have to transition to a virtual campus? And I know you're leading a team just talking about that. So maybe you could talk about some of the parameters that we're looking at.
Sure, yeah. So with that, New York State Department of Health does require that our reopening plan actually has a component that does include the contingency for returning to a remote learning. So if we do have to go to remote learning, we will be ready. Some of the drivers and triggers that we are looking at, case rates, hospitalization routes, really the parameters that the New York State Forward plan follows would be our main drivers.
Thank you. The next question, Mary Jo, there's been quite a few much earlier in the chat about students being able to go home, residential students, or maybe commuters if you're off campus and you're not from the local area.
Yeah.
Are students allowed to go home on the weekends or on holidays?
Well, I really think you could go, and do some traveling, but you really have to be responsible about where are you going, and are you able to ensure that you have not, been exposed on that trip. And, I think if you do so, you need to find ways to sort of self-isolate if you make those choices. So that would be my response at this moment today.
I just want to jump in that there is a caution that if you go to a place that requires a quarantine, so let's say you're from Texas and you go, to Texas for an extended 4 or 5 days, then you have to do quarantine. So you have to be careful because we had to mandate New York State guidelines. So if you're traveling within the tri-state area, that's a different aspect of it. So you have to follow whatever the mandate is from New York State. So just there's cautions in there.
Yeah, and I agree, Vanya. We're not restricting students from leaving campus. There's no way we would keep students on campus that way, but we do encourage you as students to stay on campus as much as possible if you're a residential student, and for commuters to also consider really limiting some of your travel. We as staff and faculty are even limiting our own travel, even with emergency travel. So we really would like for us to take the perspective of protecting the PACE family, or, we're setters, so protect the pack. And we've actually shifted our academic calendar specifically so that students would not hopefully need to return to campus after Thanksgiving break. So we're trying to take all of these measures into consideration to reduce the amount of exposure and spread, and non-essential travel is one of those things. Now, it's totally essential to see your family. That's not what I'm saying, family first. But New York State does require anyone who visits a designated travel advisory area to quarantine for 14 days upon your arrival back in New York. And we can't necessarily guarantee that we will have room for everybody that decides to go and travel. We have set aside isolation and quarantine suites for those people who do test positive throughout the semester or potentially could have been exposed. But we really want to reduce the potential for people to travel and come back. And we really want to protect that family unit here at PACE. So our next question is for Nicole. If a student wanted to get Amazon groceries or Uber Eats delivered, how would the campus handle this?
So while door-to-door delivery will not be permitted in the fall, residential students will be able to receive deliveries to a designated security station set up on their respective campus. And I'll also mention that because we have or know that we have a reduced density in the dining halls, we are increasing our mobile program. So for online ordering and pickup across each of the various campuses, we're going to be adding additional delivery stations. So I think that will be helpful to students as well.
Thank you. Brian, I'm going to kind of jump through some topics here. You already addressed this. Unless you want to add anything, what if PACE does have to transition to a virtual mode again? I think you've already answered that, but do you have other things?
One thing I wanted to mention from the question before that, if that's okay. We talked about testing and quarantine. One important thing to mention is screening. So we have a PACE Safe app. On the PACE Safe app, there's a daily questionnaire that faculty, staff, and students will be required to do just to monitor symptoms, look for any possible symptoms of COVID-19, ask if you've had a positive test in the last 14 days or if you've had any known exposures. So it will be required to conduct this daily. Just a great tool. It's available for free on Google Play and the App Store. And we will also have a web-based form that individuals can fill out if they don't have a smartphone.
This next question is for Hillary, possibly Vanya. Will tuition or fees be reduced if we are online only or have to go to remote learning?
I'll start in on that, and my boss can correct me as we move forward. No, at this point, we are not reducing tuition, and to really, when you look at it, our tuition is to support the same quality education and the investment in the technology. It's the same quality faculty. It's the same course for the most part with some adjustments to moving into that remote period. And that's also why it's important for us to understand we still have to maintain all of these expenses moving forward with that. So if we're delivered remotely or delivered face-to-face, we've still got to make sure that we've got all of the great folks doing their jobs to keep delivering the quality of that education. We're also continuing, even though it might be remote versus face-to-face, our support services. So our tutoring, our libraries, our university health, our counseling centers, our academic advising, all of those are going to continue. And we've had to really significantly ramp up technology. It's been important for us, both in terms of pedagogical tools and in terms of our other support services. So our tutoring centers, what our library is able to deliver, how our academic advising is going to take place. So we've really been working on that so that's to support, that tuition supports all of these services that continue what we're doing in terms of our operations. Now, some fees are going to be adjusted here and there. And, I know there've been some questions about the meal plans, and, if you're not on campus, then you can't use the meal plan. So obviously in that case, that's a perfect example of meal plan fee that would be adjusted. And there are some others as we go forward, and you'll be hearing about them probably in writing and also from our advisors as we move forward to identify some of those ideas.
I think, Hillary, you did a great job answering that question. I just want to add that, even though we're changing the format of the courses, you still have asynchronous teaching. You have a lot of interaction with the faculty, and you have extensive opportunities to have individual faculty and student interactions and in the classroom. So most courses are not 100% online. These are just faculty, and the small courses, the small classroom size is still there, and the ability to interact with faculty one-to-one still there.
And Rachel, I'll jump in just to clarify on the meal plan. If you are a commuter student and you are online completely and not physically coming to campus, we will waive for 2021 the commuter meal plan. And we are also working on some other plans for adjustments to policies around meal plans. So stay tuned for those to be communicated as well prior to the beginning of the semester.
Thank you, Nicole. And on that vein, there's been questions as well about the housing rates. So Hillary, what are currently our refund policies for the housing fees? Because I remember that that went out, and so it would be nice to to be able to summarize that for our folks.
It did, and for all of our students who are residential students, that information went out directly to you. We also have it available on our website, and we provided in detail what it looks like week by week. So hopefully we're not going to need this, but should this become necessary, you will know what that credit adjustment will be week by week should a refund need to be made, because we have to move more folks into a remote environment. So that was emailed directly to our residential students. It is available on our website. We've got our return to campus. Go on the student side and you'll find that information. And it is really clearly detailed so that we don't have any confusion and folks know exactly what would be coming back to them. And I think that's a really good question. So thanks for asking.
Brian and Nicole, for a lot of our New York City students and their family members, there has been some concern about the number of protests going on outside of City Hall, especially for commuter students who tend to use a lot of the station exits and entrances around that area. What is the university doing to keep students safer during this time?
So Rachel, New York City remains, one of the safest large cities in the country. And the vast majority of the protests in New York have been very peaceful. We have been monitoring all of that activity around campus as we typically do in regular practice. We have a great team of public safety professionals. Our policy and practice is to track any activity that's near our campuses. And we also make staffing adjustments accordingly if there's something that we're monitoring. We also utilize our PACE alert system to notify people in the community if there is any type of safety concern. And we've seen that in the past few years. I want to make sure I also note, Brian brought up earlier the PACE Safe app. On our PACE Safe app, we have a direct link to all of our emergency contacts, the ability to report incidents, and a feature that many students have used previously, which is a friend walk, that sort of allows a student to have another individual move with them from point A to point B and actually watch them as they go. And I think that's a great direct line to security always. The other thing that the Westchester students tend to utilize more than the New York City students is that we do have a chaperone program, if you will. We do have security officers that will walk with you from one building to another on a PACE campus, and that's offered both in Westchester and in New York. It's just a matter of notifying security that you'd like an escort, and they will move with you around our campus buildings. And we do have a great relationship with our local law enforcement and our community board and partners. And so please be assured that we are monitoring the areas in and around the campus always. And safety is a priority for us, for our staff, faculty, and students. I don't know, Brian, if you have anything to add to that from an emergency perspective?
No, I mean, we also have a great emergency management relationship with New York City Emergency Management, Westchester County Emergency Management, the Departments of Health, and the PaySafe app. You can also get push notifications of those same alerts, emergency alerts through that as well.
And we have emergency training materials as well that we share with our students, and all of that information they are able to do either via computer or via their mobile device.
Nicole, one of the questions that we have gotten is particularly around face coverings, and I know that your area is responsible for the distribution of those. I was wondering if you could talk about face coverings and then also the welcome backpacks that have additional things in them.
So yeah, thank you, Rachel. We are working closely with security to purchase the face coverings. So every staff, faculty, and student that is on campus, as you mentioned, in a public space will be required to wear a face covering. We will provide all students, faculty, and staff with 2 face coverings when they return to campus, along with hand sanitizer. And within each of our security locations, as you walk onto campus, we will also have materials there as well. If a student, again, faculty or staff member, perhaps forgets to bring their face covering with them for the day, we will have those available as well. And we have disposable masks at every station for security, as well for any visitor that might come on campus, although we'll have limited visitation in the fall.
Thank you. Do staff get those goodie bags as well?
They do. Staff, faculty, and students will all receive that goodie bag.
I was just kidding, but I'm very thankful. Thanks, Nicole. There is a lot of questions in the chat about move-in and our process, especially if you are not coming from the travel advisory area. So I did want to be able to ask myself that question on behalf of the chat. So currently we are anticipating our move-in process to begin around the 14th of August. And the reason why I have to say around, because this is a moving target a little bit, we around the 14th until well into the first week of September. And we say that because there are some students who even in a normal year need more flexibility and time to get here. So we will, we allow students to move in late if they prefer, and we will have physically distanced time slots that students will be able to move in throughout the days that we have the move-in process. They will be able to come currently with 2 people to help them move in. Everybody does need to have face coverings on, that we do need to maintain our physical distance as well. And as we continue to get more updates around the quarantine for our travel advisory states, we'll be able to confirm what that actual time frame is. But I wanted to give everybody on the chat at least an acknowledgement that that is about the time frame that we're looking at, and we should be sending out that information very soon. There was a question about, can I leave my things in my room over Thanksgiving break? So I want everybody to know currently the plan is that this is just like leaving for winter break. So take the things that you need for your extended winter break, but you do not need to send the U-Haul up and bring everything back with you if you're returning to us for the spring housing. Mary Jo, will students have space to relax and gather? How are students going to be able to spend time together? Because that's very important to a lot of the students who are on the chat.
It is, and students need space. So we will have space, and we will designate how they use the space in so many ways. You know, tables will be separated. They will be using space that's separated out so they're at least 6 feet. Students will have space in libraries, in the student centers, in the open spaces, in our beautiful new spaces in 41 Park Row and One Pace Plaza. But we will be like mindful if we need to designate the areas and you know, basically identify it visually so that the students know how we interact within these new spaces. It's the new space order, right? So I think that we're gonna be okay, and the students will, it'll be all right, I think. And I think the students will actually find that they can do this and be, you know, together with their students, but also feel that they've connected, that they're not isolated completely. And I think that's important for our students. We want the best for them, holistically.
And from, you're thinking about student organization, since we have a very active student organization population on all of our campuses, there will be, according to New York State guidelines, the number of people that can be present at an event. Is it outdoors? Is it indoors? Can we be physically distanced while we do those? That will make our student organization events look pretty different. So I know our student development campus activity teams are currently looking at their fall calendar, which they're trying to be flexible on because we're trying to give priority to spacing for classes so that we can have in-person classes perhaps in some of our larger event spaces. So we're trying to be good partners and collaborate with our academic side of the house. And so that's going to make some of our event timings and our space look a little different for our student organizations in particular. But there will be training associated with how to host a socially, physically distanced space or event, and then also about how we can keep things virtual and accessible as well.
And we're rolling out our welcome events. So, you know, you wait till you see what we've got rolling here. So it's going to be great. And, you know, we can have fun. We still can have fun. It's going to be great.
So we have reached 5:55, which means I have about time to ask one more question. And we did get a couple questions, Hillary, about deferral policies. So if a transfer, an undergraduate or a graduate student, which is pretty much everybody, wants to defer, what do they need to do and what should they consider?
For most of our programs, you can defer for one semester and everything remains the same. You've been admitted, you stay admitted, there is no challenge. If you defer for 2 semesters, in some cases you'll need to reapply. If that second semester becomes a little more problematic and have an automatic transfer, for some of our highly selective programs, it would be more challenging to defer for 1 semester. So you want to check in with admissions and you want to check in just to make sure if you're considering a deferral that you understand what that means for your particular program of study and what it would mean, you know, if you take 1 semester off and if you're a fresh student coming in or a returning student, what that would look like, what the impact is. It's easier in some programs than in others, so I want to make sure you understand before you make any final decisions. And I also wanted to just take this quick moment to remind everybody that this is being recorded. You will have access to watch this again. I think it's important because certain things I know come back around because folks come in and out, their system throws them out so they don't hear something. It will be available. Also, we'll be taking some of the information, the questions we didn't get to, and we'll be reaching out to folks with that information as well and pointing you to where that information may be housed on our website. But I did want to say, yes, there are opportunities for taking a deferral. 1 semester for many, many programs is not going to be a heavy lift. Beyond that, you want to follow in up and make sure you know exactly what the implications are. But in any case, please check with the admissions folks or your program if you're a returning student, just to make sure you understand what the possible implications are. But the answer is mostly yes.
Thank you, Hillary. And there's, I lied, I have half a question left. There's a lot of concern about when our students are in isolation and quarantine, the impact on their mental health that can have. And it's one of the many reasons why we are going to make sure that students are checked on at least daily by staff members, particularly for food, medicine, social interaction, academics, and also psychosocial support. But also looking at our virtual programs, because we're gonna have a mix of virtual and in-person. Same thing with academics. Students will not be penalized to prioritize the health of themselves and the health of their community by being in a quarantine or isolation situation. So flexibility is the name of the game this year. And so if we didn't get to answer your questions tonight, we are going to look through the very lengthy chat. I mean, there's 1,200 of you that are participating today, and we will add some FAQs and recurring questions onto that returning to campus website that I mentioned earlier. So please make sure if you haven't visited to go to pace.edu/return. I'd love to thank all of these wonderful panelists, President Krislov, Provost Quinones, for their leadership over the entire 4 months that we've been here trying to do this, but also a thank you to the faculty and staff who are not currently on camera, as they have really been working behind the scenes for the past 4 months to shape our future and to be the epitome of New York tough. So we thank them. But most importantly, we want to thank our students and our families. We know this is a really challenging time, and it has been, and we just thank you for putting your trust in us.